Okay, we're live. This is the OSRA Daily Scrum for Tuesday, December 23rd, 2014. Here we have Andre, Greg, Christian, Robbie, and myself. We are planning to do a sprint planning today, but first, just a short Scrum. Craig, let's start with you.
Nothing to report. Done a little bit of code review. I think that's about it. Script provisioning, it's not really OSRA per se, but it's OSRA related. So
for Fedora?
I've done the Fedora one, but that's helped me. The CentOS one has been broken for a little while, and by enabling the EPEL repository, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, EPEL or whatever it is, in CentOS, I've got that working. Because getting the Qt dependencies, the Qt WebKit dependencies installed for Capybara is a pain in the backside.
So how many operating systems do you have on your computer? Fedora, CentOS, Ubuntu?
Yeah, FreeBSD.
Do they live in separate virtual boxes?
Oh no, yeah, yes, they're all virtual machines, so I can put them on and put them off.
What's the main operating system?
Well, it depends on the laptop. I've got a Mac as a laptop, but I think probably Ubuntu gets used the most. But I do have severe issues with the Unity desktop. So,
like with Google.
Yeah, it's a toughie. You've got the beauty of apt and Debian packages and the horror of
Unity.
Right.
Consider Kubuntu or Ubuntu Mate.
Yeah, I put GNOME 3 on Ubuntu and it's not too bad. The Red Hat versions where they've embraced GNOME 3, they're quite smart, I think. Anyway, digressing somewhat. So I've been working on provisioning scripts a little bit, and that's me. Nothing's blocking me.
Okay, I'll pretend I understood parts of that.
So will I.
Okay, Christian.
Hey, man, I don't have many things. Actually, nothing OSRA related. I had to work today. Also, I'm reading the Agile Web Development with Ruby book.
Sorry, can you repeat that last part?
I'm reading the Agile Web Development with Rails book.
Oh, okay.
You guys know this.
Sure.
Pretty nice. So that's about it.
All right. Robbie.
Yeah, hi. Well, I've been updating those Git procedures, and I uploaded them again to the Slack stuff, so you should see them there. So if you have any comments on that, which is pretty much, I think, a final version, if any comments, get back to me. I did try to kind of design a bit process around collaborating between two developers directly. Using GitHub, so it was kind of a bit based on that link you sent me, Nick, around Pong or something like that, but a bit less complicated than that, because at the end of the day you only need the one GitHub repo involved rather than having two, where the students need their own ones, as it were. So it was a bit. So I've tried to simplify it a bit and put it down on those slides, but it'd be worth trying that out sometime if anyone fancies trying some direct collaboration with someone else via Git, and check out, see if that's the best approach. Apart from that, I was struggling with my operating system because I went and installed some Windows upgrades, and then lo and behold, all of my desktop items disappeared. All the icons on the desktop disappeared. So after searching around the internet for ages,
Windows 7?
Windows 8. I really hate Windows 8, but
why do you keep using it?
Oh, I don't know. But you know, they all had things about editing the registry and all doing all this sort of stuff and doing SCF/scan now and all this. And then finally, I came across some guy who said, "Well, what I did was I reduced the screen resolution." So I went, "Oh, I'll try that." I went and reduced the screen resolution on the PC, and they all reappeared again.
So the icon outside the desktop.
Yeah, it shows you what a good operating system Microsoft produces, you know.
Reminds me of Windows 95. This
Oh,
also happened
dear.
there.
You're very cruel. I don't think Windows 8 is that bad.
Oh, it's awful. It is.
What don't you like about it?
Well, I don't. Well, where do we start? The fact that you have half your applications are these funny square things, and half of them are normal applications, like in Windows 7. So it's kind of like a mixture between the kind of is it called charms they call them, and that you have on but they don't really fit together all that well. In fact, one of the kids showed me today how you close one of those applications. I never knew how you close them. I always
drag
close
it down
them
from the top, don't you?
Yeah, I never knew that. I always did Alt F4 just to close them. And he said you can point to the top right corner or top left corner and you see these things appear. Well, what's the point of having to do that to make an X appear on a PC? This
Tablet.
Gets me frustrated.
Okay.
That's about it from me, Nick.
Okay. Andre, let's go to you.
Yeah, I wasn't terribly productive. Yesterday, after the Scrum meeting, several hours after, Brian actually sent me a message saying that have I seen this new pull request? And then we together with Brian went to GitHub to sort of look at that pull request and try to puzzle out what it does. And we were all impressed. It took us, like, we were looking at it for 2 hours, being even more and more and more impressed with the class of that programmer who basically sent a gift of a pull request. And Brian was, I mean, he was even much more impressed than I was. He was like awestruck. Yeah, and then today I'm still working on the filters, so I created this scope for the address. I finally I saw that the clients actually responded to your question, and that they actually want the city. If you remember the filters, one of the filters was for the city, so they wanted the city of the original address, not the current address. So I created a scope in the model for the original address. But what I haven't yet done, I thought that would be enough for the pull request, but then I realized that what I haven't yet done was the filtering by the number of sponsorships. So I need to figure out how to do this filtering. Not yet even sure how to approach this.
Okay.
So yeah, that's me.
All right. Okay, so I'll wrap up by saying that what did I do? I haven't done very much today. I started working on OSRA 308 that you see on my screen because the client confirmed today how they want to verify orphan uniqueness. So it's actually based on all the names of all the family members that we have. So I'm working on that, and it would be a very easy thing to just update the functionality that we have, or rather, the functionality itself is very straightforward. It's the test that I'm working with, and for some reason, I'm trying to use the Shooter matchers to do this, and for reasons that I cannot understand, when they create an orphan, the partner for that orphan ends up being nil, and that ends up failing on the delegation because we delegate province to the partner, and so basically Shooter matchers can't work. And I remember struggling with that when I wrote the validator the first time. I'm struggling with it again because I'm, I don't know, stupid or stubborn or both, but I'm probably just going to end up going back to the original test that we had, which was maybe slightly more verbose, but it got the job done. So.
Are you using the pseudo matchers from RSpec, or are you using any additional gem for that?
Yeah, it's a gem from Thoughtbot.
Okay.
Yeah, we use it widely throughout our test suite, and it generally seems to perform quite well. With uniqueness validator, there is an extra kind of wrinkle that if you have any attributes on the model that are required, you need to instantiate the object first and then run the uniqueness validations, because the pseudo matcher itself tries to just do orphan new, and since we have a bunch of requirements on orphan, so for example, orphan delegates province to partner, so if partner doesn't exist, then that whole thing fails. So I'm creating the orphan, but for whatever reason, the one that the pseudo matchers ends up using that record, its partner is set to nil, and so it cannot be saved to the database. It ends up being invalid for that reason, and it never gets around to even testing the uniqueness. So last time I gave up on struggling with this and just wrote the test by hand, and I think I'm getting close to that point this time too. And I think that's it for me. Anything else for the Scrum portion? No? Well, in that case, let's go to sprint planning. Pavel,
Yep.
you want to lead us through it?
Lead us through sprint planning. Well, why not? So let's go to the backlog and look what we have.
Oh, that's where I was.
So, from OSRA 1 to 9, let's look at tasks from OSRA 1 to 9, and to the bottom if we have any of tasks which we need to complete in phase 0.
No, phase 0 is taken care of. We can...
No. I mean not only stories which important for phase 0, but also any chores that we consider important for this phase.
I'm pretty sure everything's taken care of, but yeah. So, user, orphan cards, upload images, later. Oh yeah, so we still need, at some point, we need to sit down with the client and discuss this special characters and English versus Arabic, etc.
Rails controller and views for partner. Do we want to?
Do we want to what?
For example, I don't know. Look, orphan duplicate check, fix record export, prevent cookie overflow. It's stories which I think quite important for us.
Well, prevent cookie overflow actually. So actually, let's go through them in order here. Orphan duplicate check.
So
that's
done now.
Yeah, it's done. It was done as maybe part of another story, which is why it's a separate issue here.
Well, if it's done, let's move it somewhere.
Yeah. Where can I move it?
You can just delete it.
Yeah, actually deleting is probably the best.
Okay. Next one.
Fix record export. So export is the functionality that we haven't even started on yet. It's what allows you to download the information from the application. So to export the lists of orphans, sponsors, whatever. And it actually, it was working, or it is working largely thanks to ActiveAdmin. So we haven't done anything. I think ActiveAdmin is handling that for us. And there is a minor problem with the way in which it is handling it.
Mm-hmm.
But after a discussion with the client, we agreed that this is something for later stages of the application, because right now export is not the primary concern for them. And this prevent cookie overflow. I think the orphan importer refactoring took care of this. So we can delete this as well, because I don't think it's an issue any longer.
Okay, let's do it.
You said you are storing all the invalid orphans in the cookies. So how did you refactor it not to be an issue?
This was unique to the two-step orphan validation that we used to do earlier, and now all the validations are done in a single step, and it's now not a flash message per se. It's a what is it now? It's the hash of errors on the importer object, and that's what gets displayed. So it's not stored in the cookie between the sessions.
Okay.
Same formats for dates across different date columns. Andre, you created this.
Yes. Yeah, I think you can also delete this.
Okay, because we've clarified with the client, and I think everybody's okay with how things are done now.
Right.
Then this is part of our Rails epic, and it's going to be a very long-term thing. So I mean, we can move it right into our next sprint, and we should, I suppose. Yeah, there is this minor refactoring, extracting validators, and yeah, this is something that I created too. This might be not a bad idea to look at early, because at the moment it's a stepwise process. When you terminate a sponsorship, first the sponsorship is set to inactive, and then the orphan's status is updated to previously sponsored. But this can happen, basically one of these things can happen and the other one thing can fail, and there are no consequences. So if there's any kind of an error that prevents orphan's status change, then the sponsorship is inactivated, but the orphan is still listed as actively sponsored.
So I think about wrapping them. Are you thinking about wrapping them in a transaction?
I haven't given it much thought, to be honest with you. But that sounds logical to me, but I'm not familiar with it enough to say that this is the optimal solution or the only solution. So if anybody has input on it, then by all means.
No one has input?
An active record transaction is what I would use.
Yeah, okay.
So what we should do with this bug?
I think it's worth addressing this soon.
Put a link in the group chat.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, it's worth to move it on the top.
Let me do that.
Do you think it's a probable or a possible situation when you terminate a sponsorship, but the orphan is not becoming
Yeah.
unsponsored?
I don't know if it's necessarily something that we should be worried about very much, but this is sort of the same approach that Christian mentioned he was taking when it comes to dealing with the database, that you either have rescue clauses or some way of handling things in case something goes wrong. And in this case, there's a danger of the things becoming desynchronized. So I think a little bit of effort to ensure that this doesn't happen is probably worthwhile. I mean, I can't see, off the top of my head, I cannot imagine how this would happen, what would prevent one thing firing and the other thing failing. But I think it would be a more robust solution to make this a single process.
Okay.
I mean, if people disagree with that, or at least with the fact that we should be wasting our time on it, then please speak up.
No, I think anything like that that's good practice is worthwhile doing. I mean, you may be right. It may only go wrong once in a million times or once in 10 million times. A bit like race conditions,
But what problem would you envision for it to go wrong? Would it be the wrong attributes, or that the connection with the database would somehow be lost, or what?
Well, it could be any of those things, couldn't it? I mean, for transactions, I mean, the classic example they use is when you transfer money from one account to another. So it's debited out of your account, but it doesn't land in someone else's account.
Right.
And if you don't have a rollback, you're very unhappy because you've lost your $200 and not given it to someone else. So I'm not very good at this. I mean, there's probably some very good examples of how it might happen, but Sod's law dictates that it will happen when you're least expecting it, I think.
Okay.
I mean, we've had several examples where our records, the ones that are in the database, have somehow become invalid, either because we had done something or what was the other problem was with addresses, I think. We had ended up with some orphans that didn't have addresses on them. So, if anything like this happens, for example, where you have a sponsorship and an orphan, and then you terminate the sponsorship and the update goes through and says the sponsorship to inactive, and then the application tries to update the orphan, but the orphan model for some reason is invalid, and that process fails. And the thing is, our application, including our models, are still, there's quite a bit of churn and flux.
Okay.
If at any point we make some kind of a change to the model that invalidates existing records, then this becomes a danger.
Okay.
I mean, you have got, I think the PostgreSQL instances on Heroku are separate to the machines that run the Ruby apps. So you've got 101 ways in which you can lose a message going across the network, I would have thought.
Oh. So our records are stored in different PostgreSQLs?
Well, no, it'll be the same Postgres account, but we're talking about packets of data, or if the Postgres database goes down or what have you. I think the transactions are recovered using write-ahead logs, is it? And if one of those is written to disk and then the other one isn't,
okay,
then it's going to come back up and execute the one that that happened. And whereas if it's wrapped in a transaction, what happens is if it doesn't execute fully, if it doesn't receive, you say transaction do and then end, and PostgreSQL has a transaction, what have you, and then commit. If the commit doesn't happen at the very end, then everything rolls back.
Okay.
So it's an all or nothing thing, a series of commands to the Postgres database either run as a unit or get rolled back.
Okay.
Anything else in our backlog that we need to promote, demote?
Can I also ask you about the single task in the phase 0 filter? Something related to Brian? Task 208, I believe. What is that?
Yeah, it's finished.
Oh, it's finished.
So its status is actually, yeah, so the client has accepted this today, and they've accepted, well, let me see this. Not sure how these are sorted, if at all.
Oh, they are best of. I think if you go to the very top,
Most
there is
recent.
the starter. Yes, most recent.
That's better. Okay, so sponsorship start dates and end dates, that was accepted today.
Where is Brian? No Brian today. Oh my God.
And the update to the importer to handle version 2.3, and I think we had orphan uniqueness somewhere in here too. So basically, all that has been accepted. So actually here, OSRA 208.
I think he's out in the woods at the moment catching shippet squirrels.
Taking pictures, dressing him up and taking pictures. Okay, so
I only yesterday realized why Slackbot was posting the pictures of squirrels. It was responding to the ship it phrase.
and then I think there's something else that's outstanding still, but I can't. This maybe 238.
It's obviously something that pervades beyond our circles, because when we were talking on Friday, and we were talking about whether we were going to deliver something, and I turned around and went, no, go ahead, do it. And all I heard out the corner of the room from my wife was, ship it! So I think we start to indoctrinate everyone we're next to.
That's sad.
Well, look, that's exactly what my wife said to me tonight. She says Robbie's got a scrum on, but don't worry, because it's time boxed.
Wow. Okay. Sorry, I can't find that task that I was looking for. If it's still not marked as closed, once we create the sprint and we have our sprint board, then we'll see it in there, and then I'll be able to close it from there.
I think that when you close task, it doesn't appear in backlog anymore. To choose.
Yeah, right. Okay. But it might not have been phase 0. Maybe there was something else. I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, I had a question about this. So I see that Matthew has been assigned. I completely missed how and when this happened.
When your internet wasn't working.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Pavel did that, Nick. That was Pavel.
Okay.
Oh yes. Yeah. Blame me.
So what's the whole point for the foreign key constraints? Is it to prevent them from being repeated somehow? And I think I also heard probably from Craig that once the foreign key constraints are added, then our database becomes basically Postgres specific.
Well, the DB schema file that we have.
Yes.
That's database agnostic at the moment. It's just a load of Ruby. But Rails doesn't store foreign key information. So if we change to using foreign keys, we have to change a setting in one of the Rails setting files, which basically makes a schema dump as SQL rather than as Ruby. So and then you're right. Yes, that becomes PostgreSQL specific.
But we're not talking about doing that at the moment, are we?
Well, if you change to using foreign keys, if you put foreign key constraints in the database, then you'll have to, because otherwise they won't be remembered across when you run a DB setup. That's why I stopped the story. I said we needed to talk about it and decide whether that's what we wanted to do. I think I posted a link in the group chat as well.
Okay. And so when my internet was down, you guys decided to go ahead?
Well, no, we gave the job to
database specialist.
Yeah.
Okay.
To look into it.
Okay, so he's not actually doing it; he's investigating it, or
I believe so. I mean, we keep talking about whether we're going to add foreign keys, and the resounding answer is always yes whenever we've.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me see if I can find that link again. I'll post it now.
All right.
But you do have foreign keys now, don't you?
No.
Well, we have the concept of foreign keys, but we don't have the constraints in the database. So when you have a foreign key constraint in the database, it makes it more difficult to create orphan records. So this goes back to the address issue that we had, Nick. You remember?
When you have associated models, you have primary keys, right? And you have something, the ID of the other model. Is this called a foreign key?
Yes.
Why do you need to constrain this thing at all?
Well, foreign keys in a table, a foreign key must actually have a corresponding ID in the table that holds the primary key. Yep. Otherwise, it doesn't reference anything.
Yeah.
So Rails won't stop that happening.
Okay.
But the database will.
Okay.
I think I never understood what foreign key constraints meant. I thought it meant that it must not be null.
Well, there's that. There's also that you can set so in Rails, you know, when you have cascading deletes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a foreign key constraint, you can't delete an item where the primary key is held. You can't delete a row out of that table if it has corresponding entries in the table that holds the foreign key.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is something that is in place now, or something that will be put in place?
Well, it's not in place now, but when we had this database conversation, people said that they wanted these foreign key constraints.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll come out with my ignorance and say that I turns out I never understood what foreign key constraints meant. Like I said, I thought what it meant is that we stick null false.
That's just unique nills. That's indexing, isn't it? And creating a not null on an indexed column, I think, is what you're.
Yeah.
Well, but if you, for example, go into database without our application, without web part of it, just go to database, you cannot delete something if constraints are in place.
Yes.
Right.
So it is very important thing.
Okay, I understand now. Like I said, I had not understood that up until now.
So let me post a link, and it'll probably explain the idea of referential integrity much better than I can.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, okay, if we decide that these tasks are important to us, just click Create Sprint.
Okay, let's focus on that and then create sprint. So this definitely belongs here.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I can do it this way, right?
Yes.
Much easier.
Yes. Down until add user.
Ooh, fancy.
Okay. And let's change the name. It's not sprint cell resolved all flags 2, it's just sprint 8 go live. Let's make our goal is to go live. No excuses. Okay. And now we can click start sprint.
So what was the principle that you used to include the tasks in this sprint? Was it?
Very easy principle. All tasks we hadn't. This task was from sprint 6, I think, and they go to sprint 7, sprint 8 until we go live. We still have some tasks to do.
How did you decide how many tasks go in the sprint?
Well, actually, when you do sprint planning, you need to compare your team capacity and amount of tasks and efforts that we need to do them. But in our case, we definitely have more capacity than tasks to do,
Okay.
actually. And that's why we haven't discussed every task if we should or if we can do or cannot do it. We just, in our case now, we just proceed working from previous sprint on some tasks, and I hope that now we can finish all of them.
Okay.
Actually, but you ask the right question, and maybe we should discuss that.
This person whose photo I am seeing, who's working on task 258, is he still around?
Haven't seen Alex in a very long time.
Yeah, I think Alex.
I mean, he was never very active, or at least he didn't have a lot of time to spare for OSRA, and yeah, he's disappeared. I don't know what, like 3 weeks ago now.
Who wants to take the story? Just grab it. It's not story chore.
But we can go through the backlog and think about. I mean, I know that Brian will very much like to see OSRA 288 added to the sprint, so I think we might as well, and probably there are other people as well.
Yes.
So unless somebody disagrees, then we put that in there. Is there anything else that people? So let's have a look. We have.
We also should discuss not only what we want to do, but what we're able to do. Are we really able to finish all these tasks in the sprint?
Well, this will be done, I'm hoping, in the next couple of days, and this is the only thing that's left before we go live, so definitely this will be done.
Oh, and filtering, is it not included in phase 0?
It's not part of phase 0.
Okay.
This was never requested by the client, so it's not, but it's definitely here.
It's probably one of the more important things, though, because there is a big performance hit as soon as you start to get a lot of records on the database with the active admin filters.
There are still quite a lot of filters in the orphan model. I mean, we removed all the filters from the partner model and from the user admin model, but the most important model, the orphans model, still has a ton of filters.
Yeah, but the filters are using your methods now. And I think that will make quite a big difference. So the way active admin was creating filters in the background was very, very inefficient. I think your renders will probably be something like three times quicker than they were before.
Okay.
Certainly, if they're similar to the ones, are they the ones that Brian and I did, or was that a different view?
You mean the filters?
Yeah. Which of you, can you remember which of you Brian and I did?
I think you did the sponsors.
Okay, well, when we did the sponsors, we saw a 3.5x
Okay.
improvement, roughly.
Okay.
So if we look at the tasks that we have, I mean, I know Andre and Christian, your names are hidden in here in OSRA 244.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're making good progress, so it shouldn't take you two more weeks.
No, it's almost here. One of the things though, in the replies to your question, if you remember, you asked the clients whether they want to filter by the orphans by family name or by father name. We were kind of confused. What's the point of filtering by the father name? The reply is actually quite puzzling. They want to have two filters, both by the whole father name and by the family name. And the thing is that using ActiveAdmin, at least when we tried to do this with Christian, we couldn't filter by the complete father name because it was possible to filter by the attribute, but the father name is not attribute. It is basically constructed from two different attributes. So when we try to filter by the father name, we got the error saying that father name equals method is absent. So I don't know if it is at all possible. It's certainly impractical, but even if the clients want it, I'm not entirely sure whether it's possible.
Well, we might have to create a modulus method to get the full name for the father.
Oh, we haven't. I think.
Well, we
think we
haven't,
have.
but I think we need to create one in the future. I mean, if there
Oh,
is
you mean to combine the, yeah. I guess Nikita would make this method, won't you?
Yeah.
Well, it exists now, but
It's a method rather than a column.
yeah, first of all, it's a method, it's not an attribute, and the other thing is my intention was to delete it because I didn't think that it would be used anywhere. It was just a temporary thing.
You don't when you are outputting in the view, you never need a father name?
Well, you know, maybe this is the situation where sort of cultural differences are coming into play and we're not fully understanding what the client wants. But if, you know, the way I would have envisioned it is that if the whole family has a family name, then what you output is the orphan's name, the father's name, given names. Orphan's given name, father's given name, mother's given name, and then a family name.
Okay.
But maybe this is not what they want because it seems that father's full name is still very relevant to them, so perhaps there is a situation there where we need to consider that.
I remember that yesterday we agreed that the father's name will be a search, not a filter. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, in fact, yeah, you might.
Or we can filter by a custom string. There's an option in filter.
First of all, I think the filters in ActiveAdmin, they actually work like searches. They work through Ransack, and Ransack is supposed to be like a very primitive search engine, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of seem to remember that this is where we ended up. We sort of said that the filters that ActiveAdmin creates in those cases where it's not just a drop-down box of values, but you know, contains or begins with or something, that is essentially a search box. So yeah, it is.
It's
in this
a parameter to a query, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
but
then
then
use a text field for that filter? Is that okay?
The what field?
The text field. So you enter a name and it will do a filter by that name, like a search.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so
the problem then is, I guess, that what ActiveAdmin is saying is that if when you enter John Smith and it says pull out all fathers whose name is John Smith, there is no such thing as father full name.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll create a custom method maybe to.
Yeah, but the difficulty is that it's not just John Smith, it's John, Adams, Smith, and Wesson.
Yeah.
So how do you parse that into a database query? I mean, this is why I think they're splitting the father name at the moment into a family name.
Well, I mean, if you have both of those filters, the filters act as ors, as ands, don't they, rather than ors?
Yes.
So, I mean, if you have two drop-down boxes, one for first name and one for last name, or given name, and
yeah.
you're effectively doing that on the database. You're creating an and.
Yeah.
That's assuming there are two names, though. It could be three names. Name.
Yeah, but everything apart from the family name would go into the father's given name.
But I think you can. Can you not in SQL create a kind of like a column out of two columns sort of thing? And
you can, but you're talking about custom.
Like
you're talking of custom SQL then, and you're not using active record.
But it might be the easiest thing at the end of the day, just to create that custom bit of SQL.
Can we plug this into ActiveAdmin?
I don't know. You would. I mean, I've done it in other applications, but I've not. Not where I've been using ActiveAdmin, so I don't know.
Well, guys, do you want to keep poking at it, and if you run into any more problems, bring them up again?
Yeah, we'll figure it out somehow.
We'll poke at it tomorrow, I think, and see what.
We'll do it in assembly. If that's the only option.
Nick, it's not the most important thing, but before I forget, if you want, you can unassign me from 244 and assign it to Andre.
Andre, Christian, do you care which one of you gets it?
Since it's basically from, the local repo is here on my computer, so assign it to me.
Okay, so let's everybody think about, first of all, your current commitments in terms of the tasks and features that you're working on, and second of all, in terms of how much free time you will have for the next 2-week sprint. And then let's look at the backlog, and if anybody feels that they have interest and time to take on another task, then let's put it into the sprint as well.
No, guys. No.
Why not?
No. Because we have a lot of tasks in our current planned sprint, and first we need to finish them before we will take the stories from backlog. So we need to understand if we're able to finish them, and what should we do if someone doesn't have enough time to finish these stories in sprint. Maybe he should give that story or task to another one. And only after we finish all of them, we can take new one.
Take a look. OSRA 129, which goes just below the frame of the sprint, it's marked as an important task, while some tasks in the sprint are marked as sort of non-important.
Yes, but 129 story is from another phase. It's the whole epic, which we haven't started yet. Yes.
Okay.
Plus, these markings, something to be aware of is that Jira forces you to put this this mark on a story. Yes. Pivotal Tracker did not, and because we migrated a lot of our stories from Pivotal Tracker, the ones that don't have anything, it doesn't mean that they're not important. It just means that they were created before we came to Jira.
Okay.
Well, but in that case, Pavel, we're going into the sprint kind of anticipating that some people might be free within a few days.
Maybe, yes, but we have a lot of tasks to do, and if we're free, we can take other tasks which wasn't completed yet. That's the idea of focusing the team on something.
Okay.
Probably if they're free, they can work on 288, which is a large epic, never ending.
Sure. And that's probably where most people's preferences lie anyway, I imagine.
Yes, for
So,
example.
to get away from active admin. Plus, once we do go live, we should be prepared for a lot of feedback from the clients.
Can I get some clarification on what people are expecting from 238?
Yeah, I was just querying that myself. I noticed that because some of the stuff that I was doing around moving the code out of config settings was involved in refactoring that orphan importer.
Well, first of all, we need to take a look at that PR that was submitted unsolicited, and
It's pretty good.
yeah, see what that changes, and maybe that's it. Maybe we don't need to do anything if that guy is as good as it appears. I mean, my personal hope for this refactor orphan importer is that, I don't know, Craig, you and I and anybody else who's interested would sit down and take a very top-level view at everything and think about how we want this to work or what's the logical way for it to work, and then see how the current implementation meshes with that idea.
Cool.
So, everyone happy with the plan? Everyone understand which tasks to do?
I'm still a bit unclear. So are you changing orphan importer then, Craig, as part of that?
No, I don't think anything's on the cards, and it's certainly not going to trample over your.
Right. Okay.
Yours is the first part. Basically, I don't know how much you know about it, but the orphan importer was written in a specific way.
Yes.
And it was very messy. So the first round of refactoring was just to maintain the API that had been created, but make it easier to understand.
Right.
So that's all we've done so far, but we're not happy with its implementation.
So you've changed some things around making the validation based on the orphan model, yeah? So I was going to put on top of that kind of hash I had for mapping from the spreadsheet into the orphan structure, yeah?
I think that's probably the next stage.
Right, okay.
And then once we've got that stabilized and moved things out of
config settings,
Rails, then we can start looking at a much more focused view on what the orphan importer should be doing and what its responsibilities are.
Yeah.
Rather than the hodgepodge that we have at the moment.
Right, okay, that's fine. So I'll go ahead and progress that to 41, which is the second stuff.
Yeah, Robbie, at some point I would like to have a talk about it, maybe in one of our after Scrum discussions.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know I left a few comments on it, but I think it warrants more of an in-person discussion rather than a bunch of text.
Right, okay. I'm not sure what opportunity there is going to be in the near future unless you're available during the day tomorrow, Nick.
Actually, the same for me. I might not be around for maybe the next Scrum or next two Scrums. So, once we pick up after the holidays, maybe. But yeah, I'm not saying that there is a rush per se, but I think we need to agree on the way to go forward before you commit too much time and effort to it.
And I think another thing that was discussed, which I don't know when it was discussed or who was there, but we did talk about being able to interchange Arabic and English.
Oh, in the importer settings.
Yeah, which is what Robbie's working on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? That the kind of true or false could be put in, or male or female could be put in either Arabic or English?
Well, no, the headers at the moment are all in Arabic in a
Yes.
spreadsheet. So what one of the things I would like to see is for that to either be an Arabic word or the English for the database field, so that we could have spreadsheets with the English headings that we could read, and they would be imported too.
Okay. And I mean, another thing which was running around back of my head was around version control. You know, if we ever change that spreadsheet format, how do we handle that version control? And it might be, you might have to have some sort of a switchover at some point in time, which might not be exactly the same as the release date, as it were.
I think we talked about that before, didn't we? And we said that at the moment we would stick with all or nothing, because if one of your changes is a field that needs to be present on a model, then it basically invalidates all the previous versions instantly anyway. I don't know what other people think about that.
Yeah, I think that's where we'll end it on that discussion, is that it's basically it's not feasible for us to offer the client to be able to handle different versions of spreadsheets at the same time.
Oh no, not at the same time, but you might want to have a version where they might want to have another field in just beside one of the existing fields. You know, that may or may not go into the database, or maybe not a mandatory attribute, an attribute that's not mandatory.
I would still treat that.
Columns along.
I would still treat that as a spreadsheet change, and the introduction of that means that's the format that we expect all future spreadsheets in.
Yeah, I think.
But one of the things that's crossed my mind, and I don't want to go too far into the future, but if we get this refactor right at the moment, you look at the config settings file, and it pins a column to a specific location. We don't necessarily need that. We could basically parse all the columns in the database, and providing that they come in and they all hit the criteria need to validate an orphan, be anywhere if it's written well. And then going forward, if you add an additional column, you've then not got this crazy situation where you have now, where if it's column C, column C through BB need changing and incremented by 1.
Yes, you're driving it off the kind of like the description in the top header fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I proposed that to Motosim at one point, and he said that we're currently not parsing the header at all, and I think that was the end of the discussion, basically.
Yeah, but we would need to if we were going along Craig's suggestion there to make the spreadsheet more flexible. Okay.
All right. Are we ready to wrap up?
Yeah.
Regarding, I've been looking at Robbie's Git guide, and there is this slide 8, right, which discusses basically the git pong procedure, and I've been wondering as well. I don't have an answer to this question. If you are doing git pong, you are basically doing lots of commits. So after you are done, do you need to squash these commits?
You can't really with git pong. That's the.
Well, you can before the PR is submitted, right?
Well, no, because they're each commits from a different person.
Right. Sorry, I see what you mean.
So you've got an interleave. It's not like someone's done the first 10 commits and then someone else has done the next 10. You've got this interleaving of commits.
So you're basically, yeah. you end up with having tons and tons and tons of commits.
Yeah.
So you could still do a rebase, could you, Craig? Or whoever's leading on that story could still do a rebase on their own system and then just push that up?
I don't know. I mean, with Git, it's designed to do many different things, and it's never going to be perfect. And I like seeing a squashed. If someone's working on something in isolation, I like to see a squashed tidy commit. But if someone was to Git pong with someone else, then I think the history that you get, and the Git blame and all that goes with it is more valuable than the squashing. But that's just my opinion, and that depends. Other people may have other opinions, but I think I would rather see who did what in the history and the sort of story that tells than losing that in a squash.
Yeah, so what you're saying is we might need to do a rebase anyway, which might get rid of it, but let's not get rid of the history deliberately, because then
well, your rebase would be against something that had already been pushed to develop, and so you wouldn't lose history on an ordinary rebase if you weren't tampering with the commits. I'm not explaining this very well. A standard rebase wouldn't alter the commits that you'd made as a pair, as a Git pong. It would only if you did an interactive rebase and started merging stuff and what have you.
Okay, so if the files that you were editing as part of your feature branch weren't affected by the latest commits that are coming through in the rebase, then it's going to keep the commit history. But if the files are changed and you have to do a merge, then is that the case where it does a recommit?
Well, it would only affect one. It would only alter one commit. If you only had one conflict, you would only be altering one commit, and then the rest of the history would be replayed on top of.
Oh, right. Yep. Okay. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Obviously, if you've, the more that you hit these three-way merge issues as you're rebasing, if you've got multiple, then it's going to affect multiple histories. But Nick, you've gone quiet. Does the idea of not squashing something on Git pong fill you with?
Yeah, I can't say that I'm a fan of it.
Fan of squashing?
No, I'm not a fan of having two people pair doing Git pong and then ended up with 20 commits, of which many might be fixed typo to make this spec pass or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I understand the value of knowing who did what, but at the same time, if it's a tricky thing for me because at the same time, I wouldn't like to end up with a simple PR that has 20 commits in it.
When you are pairing, is it that important who did what? You basically are working as a team. So
I was kind of leaning in that direction too. That this is a pull request from, let's say, Andre and Christian, and we have, if it really comes down to it, guys, then have 4 commits, 2 per person, so that nobody is leading the commit count or something like that. But in terms of what the value, if you're thinking about the value of the history, I would say that the value of seeing that in this pull request we change the spec, then we change the controller, then we change the view.
Well, what does it? What grief does it cause? I mean, you can tell from develop, but by the fact there's a merge there, where one story comes in and another story ends. So I'm not sure what it matters that much, whether it's 30 commits or one commit.
Well, in that case, on the surface of it, what does it matter who did what? You know, it's a piece of functionality. It was, you know, it was written jointly by Andre and Christian, and it's a single commit. You know, what's like, you know, it's not really that critical to know who fixed that particular typo, especially while these two guys were working as a team and presumably.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, why, conversely, why is it so important to have those squashed? You can see from your develop and what you've merged at when, what commit a PR belongs to. So why does it matter that much whether it's a string of 30 or a string of 1?
I think so, to me, it's the cleanliness of, you know, you look at the string of commits, and it's immediately clear to you the approach that was taken, and it's immediately clear to you what was actually done. You don't have to parse through multiple, you know, re-awarded a spec description, etc. commits until you hit onto the few nuggets of actually useful information.
Yeah, for me, that's what the PR description does.
Oh, okay.
But the PR description, you know, you have to track down the PR then, because if you're looking at the commit history, the entire commit history, then you're not going to be seeing that. You're going to be seeing a long trail of incremental, rather meaningless commits. You know, I'm not going to say that it's my way or the highway. Obviously,
No, I know, but I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, in the ideal world, I get all of that. But for pair programming, you know, I think maybe it's the activity of pair programming and the hassle of sorting all those issues out isn't worth the. I'm not sure we gain that much. That's all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Christian and Andre, you've been pairing most recently. You've submitted several pull requests with 3 or 4 commits each, as I recall. You know,
yeah,
maybe
we never ever employed Gitpong approach. So
okay.
it was always like one looking over the other's shoulder. Basically, one was actively writing, the other was looking at suggesting.
I see.
I mean, I think you've been saved just recently because when they started working on the filters, they had to scrap the work that Brian and I did. But for that one view, I think we may have approached 20 commits or something through Gitpong.
Oh, you used it with Gitpong.
Yeah, Brian and I Gitponged on that.
Okay.
So
yeah, we was a bit surprised by the number of commits. Yes.
But I mean, that was just. I mean, all we were doing is one was writing the test, then another one was passing it, and then writing another test, and then moving over. So.
Yeah.
Well, for the homeworks, for the SAS course, we use Cloud9, and it worked really well, but it's not very fast. It's HTML5 and it's heavy. Really.
I'm not sure that all of our dependencies would work on Cloud9 or Nitrous or any of that.
It basically is the same Ubuntu. Maybe PhantomJS wouldn't work. I don't know.
I mean, we Git ponged each using our own development machine, and that was very quick.
Yeah, and I installed like apt-get RVM and stuff on Cloud9, and it works. Everything works.
So Craig, did you just access each other's Git repositories on your local machine, or did you go by GitHub the way I've shown it in the slide?
So what we did was I set up Brian as a remote, and Brian set up myself as a remote. And then, say Brian kicked off, he pushed his commits up to his GitHub repo, and I pulled into my branch, local branch from his GitHub repo. And then I did some work, and then I pushed that up to my GitHub repo, and then he pulled from my GitHub repo into his local branch, did some work, and pushed up to his. So it's like a figure of 8. That's
yeah. I've thought about that, and thought about. In the end, I decided it's probably simpler just to go for one repo on GitHub and kind of get pulling and pushing to that one.
Yeah, both need access then.
Yeah, you both need access. That's right. You need to get set up the other guy with write access.
I mean, it's one of those weird things that when you read it on paper, it starts messing with your head. You don't need to be doing it very long at all before there's more muscle memory than there is trying to think about it. I think once you've by the time you've done your second or third at the most Git pong, it's kind of it's second nature. I can remember reading the instructions before I tried it, and it definitely seems more confusing on paper than it is in practice.
Yeah, it does. I think even drawing a diagram helps. Is that us then, guys? I think I'd better get back to the family.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. See you around.
Cool beans. I may not see you guys for a few days, so have a great Christmas.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, same yourself. All the best.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Stay off that vodka, Pavel.
Merry Christmas.
See you.